Welcome to those of us who are joining us for our first Trends and Insights discussion. I'm Ellen Price, Director of Professional Services for Caspian One, and I'm joined by our founder and CEO, Marcus Graziano, and our Senior Technology Lead, Neil Sinclair. Caspian One are known as a very client-led organisation. We spend a lot of time with our clients in the market, gathering human intelligence and understanding the challenges in tech roadmap delivery. So this series looks to share the trends and insights we're seeing on our travels, such as AI disruption, what that means for organizational design and ways of working, how the reg horizon will affect trading tech over the next couple of years, and strategic and necessary shifts for our clients around diversity, inclusion, ESG, and location. And a whole load more affecting our clients and their tech team needs. But today we thought we'd start at the beginning, the origin story of Caspian One, what value means to our clients, and how we're building a business that aims to optimize the potential in response to these trends. So where best to start, Marcus, than with you, our founder and leader of 22 years, founded Caspian One 22 years ago. And we're proud of our heritage and our roots in recruitment, and now our reputation as a professional services business. And it's been an interesting journey. So I thought the best place to start is how's the journey been from your perspective, from recruiter to professional services?
Yeah, I didn't have grey hair. It's been seamless.
Yeah, transformational.
It's been an interesting journey, and you know, we've made lots of mistakes on the way. So, and I always kind of joke we've made some of them several times just to make sure we'd really got it wrong at times, and we've learned our lessons. But I think that, you know, that's the hard path of learning, and it really embeds the kind of the change over that period of time. So it's kind of, you know, I've told this story a few times about, you know, where did we start, where are our origins, and then how did we end up where we are today as a, you know, technology services company. And in some places, you know, recruitment can be a dirty word. You know, it's not always seen as you know, as the most highbrow of kind of professions, and I think that it depends where you're playing in the services that you deliver, and what it means to your clients. So we started life, and we're proud of this kind of heritage in kind of front and middle office technology recruitment within the kind of fintech sectors. So when I say fintech, fintech has morphed as a term, but, you know, traditional kind of capital market houses, so buy side, sell side, financial institutions, and we were very niche. We were focused, you know, around the derivative pricing space, and, you know, the kind of the cash generative part of the organizations we were working with. I think because we were so niche in what we did, and, you know, it was really kind of the credit derivative and kind of equity derivative spaces where we kind of cut our teeth, that we were able to bring value really quickly to our, you know, to our clients. So, you know, with the credit markets growing over a period of time, and, you know, credit can be a bad word for what, you know, people's connotations around, you know, what happened with the kind of the credit crunch. But you know, back at that period of time, the ability to find the right skills pool, or help to develop that skills pool, pulling people in from different areas, and then kind of either getting them, put them on educational courses or upskilling them as individuals, and then, you know, presenting them to clients. That, you know, it allowed us to embed ourselves with a few key clients, and they saw the value of what we could bring to the table, you know, and that was built on, you know, trust, you know, that we'd kind of established over a period of time, with those organizations. So namely, one of the kind of the first organizations we had a really big impact with was Dresner Kleinwort Benson, and they kind of early days saw the advantage we brought to the table, and we were able to get close to them. There wasn't too much process in the way, and therefore we were able to really support them in the development of their platforms. And they were of a size, but they were nimble enough in the market that they were able to work with us, and they were really a real anchor client for us, as, you know, as Caspian. You know, obviously I'd worked within the recruitment sector, and I had worked with many other organizations prior to that, but really Dresner at those days, they really kind of, they brought us in close, and we worked work with them to build out, within their front office derivatives pricing environment. That then spread to other clients within those asset classes, within those kind of functional areas, and we were small and nimble, and we as our clients succeeded, we succeeded, and it allowed us to build a track record of success in that area and in that market for what we did. Now, success can be a double-edged sword, because then you then get pulled into more generalist areas of staffing, as it was then, and the kind of very specific tech business hybrid skills we're bringing to the table, suddenly were bucketed in with some more general kind of technology skills, and it was perceived, I think, mainly by the kind of the corporate bodies. A lot of the time, their job is to drive down the price to acquire these types of services, and that meant that who we were was being constantly diluted, and the big organizations wanted to pull you in and put a layer of control in between you and actually your kind of line management that you were delivering to. And that's just the maturing of the market. That's it's nothing. It makes sense. This area of the market had been the Wild West for a period of time, and organizations were just trying to get control over their spend and who the right partners to work with. We roll that forward over a period of time, and we saw that the people we were putting forward, the skills we were putting forward, that consulting firms were looking, they're actually coming to us to help staff them, to then put them on client site. And we have a prime example with one organization. We were representing a set of candidates to some clients, and one of these consulting firms had tried to put and represent our candidates through to the same client. And that wasn't, that happened on numerous occasions. So it became apparent that, we needed to move further up the food chain to maintain our position and to maintain the value add. And, we had very positive feedback, not always, but mainly around what we were doing and how we were supporting organizations for growth. And it's like, right, we started the march towards changing who we were from a tech or front middle office tech recruiters to kind of the technology services and professional services business that we are today. Mm-hmm. I think it happened organically as well. So there has been a very specific strategy, and it quite often is difficult to change your voice. Even if you just look at organizations who would kind of buy our services, on one side you'd have the talent arm of a kind of major organization. They would engage with recruitment, but your technical professional services business and consulting practices, they would come through a different channel. So organizations themselves would struggle to work out how to engage with us and really what our voice was in the market and the services we were offering. Now that has created some complexity for us. Our clients, bizarrely enough, haven't found, when I say clients, I mean the line management, the direct recipient of our efforts, and of which obviously Neil was in a previous life. They didn't find this too kind of challenging to understand, in as far as they wanted a trusted partner to help support them in bringing to the table capability to help them execute on their plans. Now, that capability could be at one end helping with permanent staffing. At the other end, it could be structuring a project or a piece of work or a managed service to deliver services in. At the end of the day, I'm speaking on your behalf here, Neil, but it's kind of at the end of the day, we saw this as quite commonplace. It was basically, who's my trusted partner that I can go to make things happen. And we've got, and as I said, this was partly organic but also overlaid with kind of strategy. But over 10 years ago, we were supporting organizations ramp up teams in short order, the kind of Eurogovies project at RBC. We supported them and onboarded and hired in a team of people to execute on that iron implementation in like 6 weeks. And we had bodies on site. There was north of 25 people, I believe, to execute on that project. And we went from initial conversations through to hiring plans, getting bodies on site, and then the project being delivered in under a 12-month period, which I think is, unique. And that was actually all built on because there was, trust with on the RBC side. They brought us close. They understood what capability we could bring to the table, and then that allowed us to kind of, be the best version of us and deliver our services the best that we could, because we didn't have the blockers in the way, and we were working in that kind of kind of true partnership. There's lots of iterations of that, but on our journey to where we are today, you have to pepper your history with lots of these smaller kind of discrete moments in time when you're kind of proving your capability in this regard. We look at what we do now, and I think it's phenomenal. Just we look at the composition of the company, the number of our technology staff internally, our project management capability. Then we've also obviously got our kind of our account management interaction, and then our kind of our talent teams that kind of support all these elements. I mean, it's a very different organisation than back at the beginning, and the complexity, of the service lines that we offer. And it is literally from, are you trying to build your internal talent on a permanent basis? Do you need a more flexible kind of solution, which is a traditional kind of time and materials kind of contract engagement, through to the kind of more strategic staff or location strategy, diversity strategy, through to running managed services for front office functions, and delivering, projects on that side, let alone what we doing in North America, in Canada, and supporting and rolling out to the credit ecosystem. To the financial services ecosystem there, the open banking solutions. So it really has evolved as an organisation where we stand today.
I think it's really interesting. You use the language allows us to bring the best version of us, and the best version of us being that we're a trusted partner in bringing the capability to help our stakeholders execute on their plans. You just had a thumbs up.
I sipped my tea and I've obviously given myself a thumbs up. I'm doing a brilliant job.
But obviously, Neil, for those of you who don't know you were a client, you were a stakeholder of ours as the head of investments technology at asset management at UBS, and then you moved to Point 72, where you were the head of product for trading. And you've been really instrumental in our journey, in helping us design the service set that Marcus has just described, from kind of strategic staffing through to resource augmentation to managed outcomes. And it was a conversation about 5 years ago, I think, that began with our Chief Commercial Officer, Adam, and Marcus, about what is value to you. So I thought it'd be kind of worth hearing from you, when you first met Caspian and you were having those conversations, what was it that you valued from a professional services provider?
I guess Caspian One specifically, I guess the thing that I felt made them stand out was the personal relationships. So at all times in the conversation, you felt you were speaking to Adam or Marcus, not just the head of this or the chief of that at company XYZ. And I think there was always a desire to foster lasting relationships, and make sure that you were seen, whether they were seen as kind of an ally, as someone who could help get things done. Other organizations that I've worked with, you always feel like you're a little bit of a product. You feel a little bit stage managed. You feel that you're really kind of the means to their end, and somebody who's not necessarily by your side. And I think always stuck out. I mean, sure, Caspian One have kind of always been known as a recruitment firm and a great place to go and find firm talent. But I think, if you look at the kind of the journey that we're on now, and you look at problems that technology managers are trying to solve, the issue, as I've always kind of seen it, is having to go to different front doors to buy different services, and therefore being constrained in your ability to maintain flexibility or to traverse or segue from one to the other as the opportunity or the environment changes. Those people that spend a lot of time in big banks will be very familiar with offshoring and outsourcing. And I think on the kind of the first waves, as banks went through that, they kind of quickly realized that if you just treat these as a cost play, what you actually do is you might kind of reduce the bill overall, but you create a lot of inefficiencies and you create a lot of problems for individual line managers, for dev managers trying to get things done. And I think to kind of have to pick discrete services from discrete providers and it being difficult to mix and match makes it very problematic. At the end of the day, managers deal with teams of people. They, in my view, care less about where those people came from. What they really want to care about is how does that team, as it's made up, help me get my stuff done. And I think the more of an ability that a dev manager has to work with a partner to kind of open the kimono and say, these are the problems, these are the bits that are easy for me, these are the bits that are hard, these are the bits that I don't know how I'm going to solve. What do you suggest? Working in collaboration as a partnership is incredibly valuable to a manager, to be able to go delegate, to be able to simplify their worlds, not add a different type of complexity. I think is very important. And Caspian One have always, in my mind, and it's my experience and in my dealings, have been there. I think Adam is the only person who has ever called me up just to see how I was getting on, just to see how things were going, rather than having something to sell me or looking for opportunities. And over the long term, I think that's important to managers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that kind of genuine, authentic approach to building relationships, which is why Caspian's been so successful. A lot of our relationships have been with us for 20 years, right, Marcus? So a lot of our staff have been with us for almost as long, 16, 17 years. So the kind of sticking power of our people and of our clients and relationships, I think, is testament to that.
I think that it's when you're not a huge corporate body, it allows you to have more sensitivities, I suppose. People are closer to actually, the interaction with on the client side and what's important to the clients, and therefore that should reflect your values internally. For many years, my life was spent in meetings with clients, understanding how we help, delivering the service myself directly. And so you know what right looks like, and how you're adding value. There was a client of mine many years ago, a chap by the name of Chris Atkinson. He was at Lehman Brothers, and I'm not sure what Chris is doing now, but he said to me, as I was trying to, carve out my niche with him and win favor, he said, at the end of the day, each time you do something good, you deposit, something in the positive box. It's an extra coin that goes in there, and each time you get something wrong, it comes out the box. So it's like you want to be a net contributor to answering my problems and making things better for me. And it's a really simple thing, and it's I just remember that those words, and it's and so what it does, it tries you to make you empathic to the people you're working with, your clients, be that on the teams of people we're bringing to clients, be it to the clients themselves. So what are their pain points, what are their needs, how do I make that net positive contribution, and that to Neil's point, sometimes that is literally just at a human level, just checking in. Sometimes it is you are making them aware of either a market trend, a situation, or things that that maybe not on their radar. So that kind of market information. And sometimes it is kind of saying, hey, we're doing this now, we want to sell you something, but it's not done in a way that is it's done because actually I think this is going to benefit you, and this is my, I understand what your problem statement is, let me play it back to you, this is what we've got, I think this is the benefit, is it or isn't it? Rarely, if you're sincere in that regard, rarely are people going to say, don't waste my time, don't ever darken my door again. They kind of and you build your relationship, and again, it's back to trust. You build that over a period of time, and it's not a 1 meeting or 2 meeting. It takes years, and as long as you've got that perspective, and actually you enjoy, I think that's one of the things that I've always really enjoyed is that all the people we've worked with, not everyone, we've all got kind of personalities that stick out and things in the past, but generally the people we work with, super bright, super motivated, and engaged in really high pressure situations, and it's that's a very fulfilling area and space to work in.
I mean, I think it's all I was going to sort of say to that, right? And I think sometimes it gets lost because everybody talks about technology and the pace of technology and the impact, but ultimately it's a people business, right? We find people to help people solve problems that are created by people or brought to the table by people, and therefore people, teams, applications often outlive people in roles and jobs, and you're constantly needing to kind of recycle or reshape or reform teams over time. And being able to work with people, whether it's firms that you've hired or recruitment consultants or professional services, you've got to be able to get on with those people. You've got to be able to trust them. You've got to achieve outcomes. And you really want the people that you work with, the workforce people that you work with, to be an extension of you, of your culture, of your philosophy, so that they can come together. I think a lot of times, and I was going to say this earlier, you kind of, when I think of professional services, and I think of the likes of Anderson's or Boston Consulting or whatever, right? I actually, they're exceptional, right? And I mean that in the sense that they come in for an exceptional reason, right? There's a break glass, something's happened of sufficient importance that we need to call in the consultants. And oftentimes they come in and they're very disruptive. I'm sure they don't mean to be, because of the nature of the way they come in. They don't know anything. They're trying to learn, and in doing so, they create disruption for the people that are just trying to get stuff done. Like that can be a problem, right? There has to be a gentler, softer way to build relationships over time. Do people understand you, understand your objectives, understand your problems, understand your constraints, and can advise and suggest and provide that doesn't cause the disruption, that improves the flow, that improves your ability to get stuff done, not create additional challenges. And I think that's so important, to have that personal element and that kind of understanding that's been built up over time.
And I've obviously come from a Big Four background, and I think what's interesting and what we've discussed recently is the kind of the leverage model in one of those larger consultancies that we're not faced with. So we're able to bring in talent at an appropriate level who, as you say, can actually accelerate getting things done, rather than kind of hinder and disrupt getting things done, because you've got the right brains on the right problem at the right price point.
Yeah, the talent market is the talent market, and the available expertise is the available expertise. You want to make sure that if you're being transparent about what you want to achieve and what you're prepared to pay for it and the value that comes as a result of it, you want to pay the right amount of money to get that outcome as quickly and as efficiently as possible. You don't want to, ideally, you don't want to be training other people up on your dollar to it's going to go and help a client or someone else down the road. You want to be quite specific about how you want to build that team and how you want to go solve that problem. So the fact that you can have a very transparent, upfront conversation about what you need to achieve and what the timeframes are and what your constraints and dependencies are, and then go out and shape a team or a set of experts around that problem, and get comfort yourselves that that team is actually going to help you, and you're not going to have to handhold them or provide a whole bunch of guidance, which takes away from your capacity. I think is so important, and then deciding what wrapper you want to consume them by. Do you want perms? Do you want short-term contracts? Do you want fixed price projects now? But well, I don't know what I want in 6 months. So can I keep an option open? Can I pivot from this to that without that having to be I'm now going to have to segue from one company to another, and how do I exit one statement of work because I had to make a decision and it was the wrong decision. Because we've kind of compartmentalized and fragmented the wider industry in terms of how people buy these services, it's very hard then to traverse it if you need to pivot. I think
so that kind of the concept you talked about of having kind of one front door, and then I've almost got a picture of one front door and behind it this net contribution box.
I almost see the joke is, you've got these multiple front doors, but behind it it's the same person. It doesn't really matter which door you open, you get the same person. And that person is the right person for your job, right? So many times, if you look at all the other models that have grown up, I kind of mentioned outsourcing, that grew out of how do I reduce my costs? And nobody really cared about quality or cared about value or cared about delivery. I think if they were being honest, I think a lot's been learned out of that. And if you look at the way teams tend to be organized now, there's a lot less. So in the old days, it's probably not the case anymore, but in the old days, people used to talk about staff augmentation. So I take a team of 10, and I would take 3 of those people and I'd move them to an offshore location. So I would augment my team and I would reduce the overall cost of the team. It sounds great on paper, but clearly it destroys value because the teams aren't co-located, they don't know each other. It's harder for people who aren't close to the business to learn. It becomes very problematic. So I think that's a bit of an anti-pattern, and I'm assuming everybody agrees with me. So then you kind of into the co-location of teams, where all teams are kind of either co-located or proximity located, same time zone or near, and that's better. And I think probably with the advent of post-COVID and teleworking and remote working, a lot of those barriers are reduced, and teams that work somewhat remotely can be and are very, very effective together. But there is still these where those people aren't co-located next to a business user or don't have the experience of having worked with business users and domain experts. I think it can be hard. But again, you want to be able to, if you're in control of all the moving parts, you can shape a team, you can self-organize a team around strengths and weaknesses. So, if you've got a C++ whiz who's based in Prague, but you need to offset their technical expertise with business expertise by somebody who's based in London, by being able to go to one, someone like a Caspian One, you can shape that team, you can self-organize, you can work out how collectively that team can deliver everything it needs to deliver. You're not compromised by having to access one talent pool at a time.
I think also what you've just described is all it kind of marries up with how organizational structures have changed within technology, specifically across the larger clients, at least, as over the years when we've gone from more vertical models, asset class aligned, through to horizontal layers, where then trying to drive the economies and building out kind of functional areas, but almost decoupling them from their own internal clients. That's where I've definitely seen, we've all seen a shift over, going from a full vertical to a full horizontal to then a partial horizontal, partial vertical. And historically, the pure, in my opinion, that kind of horizontal structure lent itself more to, offshoring, that kind of staff org model, because they're trying to decouple elements at points and just say, well, the technology is a set of services that we consume. And the same as anything, it's always a balance. Yes, there are benefits to that model, and there's benefits to a pure vertical model, and trying to work out what's the most applicable, and therefore how do I go about creating teams of people who have identity, within their team structure, to then kind of deliver the services they need to do. And to your point, then trying to work out, okay, so we're building out a location strategy, be it Poland, be it Prague, and then how do we get the business users to interact, and how do we juggle that? So with some of our clients in Montreal, that's in essence a nearshore location to at some level to New York. They built out big tech hubs there to be able to support the more expensive centers like New York. But in doing that, we've seen that these centers now, Deutsche Bank, for example, their Carey build out, which we were heavily involved in, it was basically they replicated whole teams, so the center had its own identity, rather than just going, we're going to have a subset of bodies in New York and London and Frankfurt, and then we're just going to pad out the numbers at a cheaper cost location. Actually, they built, and Carey was deemed to be one of their strategic plays. Actually, they decided that at that point they were going to build out centers of excellence there, and give it its own identity and its own stage to stand on, because then otherwise I think these location plays, they can feel a bit like a second-class citizen in some of the conversations, and that's really psychologically difficult for managing the team morale. I'm sure you've had experience of this, Neil. Trying to manage the kind of the team morale and people keep the cohesion there.
I mean, I think it's very difficult. The one company who I think did this very successful in India, they went out there en masse. They moved a whole bunch of MDs out to India. They said that this is a presence that we're going to be in for the long term. They viewed it as a talent play, not as a cost play. And I think they've been successful by being able to offer people careers, meaningful challenges that matter to the firm. I think that's how you be successful. People ultimately want to feel enfranchised. They want to feel they're contributing. People want to buy into the purpose, and I think that's really important. If they're just viewed as a number, as a cost play, as a rearranging from a top-down perspective, I think that's a very dangerous game to play. And I think you see that when I joined UBS. Moscow was the place to be, and then overnight, very suddenly, it wasn't, and everybody had to find somewhere else to go. And I think you still see that. I think the firms that are most successful away from the major hubs are those that are able to put a sizable presence of technology and back office and ideally front office. I think those work well. I think if you are going to try and blend teams across regions, then you need to have a very strong culture, and you need to have a travel budget that reflects people's ability to feel part of something bigger.
I'm not sure where Marcus has disappeared off to. He seems to have dropped out. But so, you mentioned there, we spoke to you 5 years ago about the kind of service that you wanted, this concept of one front door, make it easy for me to be able to kind of access my talent needs however I need them, understand my operating context, understand my organization, be effective from day one, essentially help me to get things done. Don't be disruptive in the process of getting things done. And so you were kind of instrumental in helping us design how we now deliver those services into clients. And, very fortunately for us, you've now joined us to head up that delivery yourself. And we've spent, the first few months of your time with us on the dark side, for want of a better word, kind of doing that listening, being in the market, talking to clients about the trends, the insights, what they're seeing, how they want to work with us. So I thought now would be a good opportunity to kind of just pick up on some of the themes that we're hearing, because we've talked a lot here about our financial services sector. We also have broadcast media as a sector. And I think that's quite interesting because, you're picking up on some commonality across the sectors, which I think would be an interesting place to start in terms of the trends that we're seeing.
Sure. I mean, I think there's the trend that I think is kind of always there, is this kind of notion of how to modernize. My experience being in banks, and I don't think it's any secret to say that people are constantly battling with legacy technology issues and how to modernize those, whether it's in the cloud, or whether it's kind of a DevOps type approach, whether it's just sort of modern software engineering techniques. I was pleasantly surprised, disappointedly surprised to find out that telcos have similar issues. What do they do with the rating platform? What is interesting is that I think there's actually probably quite a lot of convergence. I think the cloud and the transformation has kind of driven that kind of common. It's almost like kind of inverted the pyramid, if you like. A lot of these application level services are now built on kind of common foundations, common across banks, or similar, not clearly not identical, but kind of similar in nature across banks and telcos. I think clearly the sort of cloud 2.0, I'm sure that's the wrong phrase. I'm sure there's a better phrase. But kind of that headlong rush into cloud, and we just need to get into cloud and cloud at any expense, and let's just get into cloud and see where we land. I think that's kind of resulted in the inevitable. There's lots of applications that are kind of in cloud, but probably not very efficient, not very cost effective. And now that we're in cloud, I'd expect to see a steady unpicking, rebuilding of those applications to make the best use of the cloud features. So a lot of serverless infrastructure, making use of less sort of virtualized tin and more services. So I expect to see a steady re-architecture of that. I think it's no surprise that everybody's looking at AI and how that factors into things. I think it's very interesting, not just from a functional perspective and how do we integrate or make best use of AI, but also what does that have from a DevOps and from a software engineering perspective, and what does that mean for the likes of us? We're, as I was saying earlier, we're all about people, and we're all about bringing people to the problem. But now increasingly, not all of those people are going to be real in that sense, right? You're going to have programmers and engineers that are AI, and what does that mean from an agile model? What does that mean from a two pizza box team? How does that integrate? So I think that's clearly an upcoming challenge as people get their heads around what that means and pick themselves up from the first failed attempts. I think certainly in some of the spaces that I've operated in the past, you're seeing a lot of commoditization of the infrastructure. So I grew up building order management systems. I think in general, a lot of that is kind of commoditized. And I think there will always be firms who are looking to rebuild their own proprietary order management systems, but that's a very expensive endeavor and requires some very specific expertise, as well as a very engaged set of stakeholders that have bought into that long-term journey and understand the payoffs and the values over and above just buying software off a shelf. So I think you will start to see that more and more people really trying to differentiate their IP from the plumbing and working out what's the best way to maintain the plumbing over the longer term. I think start to look at applications across the TCO of its lifetime rather than just engineering costs and upfront development costs, but are starting to think much more about the husbandry, if you like. I'm not sure what the right term is, but the sort of pastoral care, perhaps, of applications and how you manage them over their lifetimes. I think will be really interesting to see. And then I think there's a lot of work coming in the regulatory space, as clearly financial regulators, but regulators at large really start to get their head around the technology dependencies and the systematic risk that potentially brings into a firm's operating context. So there's lots of change and there's lots of opportunities for us to get involved in. Let me just add in a little bit extra, I guess. So one of the other trends that I think that we are seeing, I don't think it's a new trend, but I think it's just potentially reached that inflection point, is the growth of languages like Python, and therefore the ability for everybody to get involved. I think IT is no longer just the domain of experts. Clearly, everybody has their place, but the democratization, if you like, the ability for people to become productive, especially with the help of AI agents to fill in some of the blanks. So we're going to see, I imagine, a lot more code, potentially a lot more fragmentation, a lot more sort of customization for very specific tasks for a very concise user base. What does that mean from the management and wholesale sort of enterprise to put the safeguards and guardrails and sandboxes around those so they don't have repercussions or security, whatever, beyond their intended use.
Okay, and we talked a lot about kind of trust, and obviously Caspian's reputation and track record being built upon the trust that we've, Marcus said it's not something you build over a short amount of time; it's something you build over a long amount of time. And the two components of trust being warmth and credibility. We spoke, you talked there to our track record, our credibility, what we're good at, but there's also the kind of human aspect to interacting with us. And you talked earlier about the fact that when you deal with someone from Caspian, it feels genuine, it feels authentic. I'm interested to hear that's how it felt as a client. You're now a member of our team. How do you feel that sense of Caspian culture from the inside?
It feels a little strange being from the inside to sort of peek behind the curtain almost. I've spent a lot of my career working. I guess I maybe started off in a huge, big corporation, and then went to a massive corporation, and then I started working in smaller places. And the ability just to know people's names and see a face and know what they do, and be able to reach across the aisle or go tap someone on the shoulder is really nice. To be able to work, to visit the office in Bournemouth and to go get a coffee and be able to walk past people and stop and have that conversation. I think Caspian One is still at the size where even within the firm, those interactions and those relationships really count for a lot. Just to be able to, people talk about the water cooler moment, I guess, but be able to just stand up and have a conversation and get insight or make a comment. I think that's really great. I think the fact that we have those sort of weekly company-wide calls, and they're not just sort of a town hall where somebody's pushing out KPIs or the latest strategy, but it is actually a sort of genuine conversation with the odd sort of in-joke and bit of gentle ribbing. It fosters, those are the moments that I think help build the culture, because it's about what people are like when they can be whoever they like. There's no pressure to perform or put on a mask, right? The people are the people, and as they wander around the office, I think that there is a very sense. People are very genuine. They bring their whole selves, as it were, to the office. There's no kind of. I know it's a long time since anybody wore suits, but if I haven't been there during summer, but if everybody turns up in shorts and t-shirts, like, I would not be at all surprised, and I don't think anybody would bat an eyelid, and I think that would just be fine, right? Because it doesn't get in the way of people doing the job.
And he's back
with his shorts and t-shirt, almost.
We were just talking, Marcus, about the components of trust, and we've talked about the kind of credibility angle and what we're famous for, but we were just turning a bit to talking about the kind of warmth, the authenticity, what it's like to interact with us. Are we as genuine on the inside as it felt from the outside? And I think it's quite impossible to be one and not the other. And Neil was sharing his experience of kind of joining the belly of the beast, and the fact that it feels as collaborative inside as it did as a client. So I guess that's a nice place to leave today, in terms of, we have a purpose statement around optimizing the potential of our clients, optimizing the experience of our partners, and optimizing the journey of our staff. So I guess and that's born from your image, that's born from your set of beliefs. So I thought a nice place to finish today would be kind of, what does optimizing potential mean for you?
I mean, this is, as you know, for my view on this, it's so far reaching, that kind of arena, optimizing potential, and it's a great, it touches every aspect of our life, doesn't it? There is from you can wear a persona, a hat, and look at your own kind of life and go, about optimizing potential, and one of the kind of the things I've cited before was around that kind of Goldcast kind of YouTube kind of video that was put out with the Admiral talking about the US Navy SEALs Admiral, and I'm sure lots of people have seen it, and those who don't, basically said there's many touch points during your day to optimize potential. The first version of getting things right for you is in doing what could be perceived hard things, or not even what is perceived as hard things, but just obvious things. Make your bed in the morning. And I love that as a metaphor for so many things that we can do. It's very easy, and I say to my teenage son, it takes nothing, but you just get up in the morning, have a look at the room that you've destructed overnight, and how you've done that I don't know. Make your bed. Just kind of put yourself in order. It's the first task of the day that you can hold yourself to accountable for, and it's a domino effect, and that then goes into the quality of the relationships we have, be it the empathy that you have for people, your family, your friends, people who work with you, for you, around you, optimizing the potential of those relationships. Again, back to that kind of making a positive contribution into people's lives, in whatever form that takes, through to I'm a strong advocate of exercise as a way, move the body to move the mind. And I think so many of us are either, as we all know, stuck to phones or stuck behind Teams meetings, or that bit of personal rigor and discipline, it helps you optimize your own potential. And that, we obviously, there's a Caspian event we did earlier in the year. We did Montbouet, and just the kind of the personal journey, the preparation for that. And, we raised good money for many good charities on that event. But the build up and the training for that, doing those hard yards, yes, it kind of it's physical, and you're looking after your body, but you're looking after your mind. You kind of, you stop drinking a glass of wine in the evening for a month or 2 months. You kind of you make yourself do things that you don't want to do. You kind of, when you get up in the morning, you go, actually, I've planned out, I need to do this amount of, I've got a training this weekend or whatever to make sure I'm fit for being on the day. Now, if you cascade that into every other aspect of what you can do, and doing hard things, makes us better. And again, I go back to our, my kids, and I go, I look at them, you're trying to instill a bit of, rigor and kind of leaning into the difficult moments. I know, Neil, you're a keen cyclist, and I'm sure there's many a hill that you have cycled up in driving rain, but it's a bit of and the wind, it's a bit of a metaphor for life and everything else we do. You just got to keep your head down and keep going. And in a way, that's, another example of optimizing our potential. Now, if I look at that from a wider context to Caspian, how do we optimize our potential as an organization? How do we optimize our potential of everyone who works with us, for us, and around us? It doesn't mean that we become the most the largest commercial entity. It's about doing great things in our small, and I think this, that is for me is the most important thing. Doing as best as we can in those small moments. Again, there's I can't remember where I saw this or heard this, but it was, someone going for an interview, and the chief exec was interviewing candidates, and he at the end of the day, he went and he spoke to the guy who was on the kind of the entrance to the car park, and he asked all these people, who was the nicest and who engaged with you, who was, because at the end of the day, it's when your guard is down, the quality of who you are and you interact with people, that's who you are. And that says so much. And I think so again, it comes down to integrity, and just being the best version of yourself that you can be in that moment. And we all get that wrong all the time. Someone cuts you up in a car and you want to run them over. The someone on the tube is, I don't know, being inconsiderate. They haven't had a wash for months or whatever. I don't know, whatever thing. There's so many different kind of elements where we are very unforgiving to people around us. And actually, if you then do that and you make that positive contribution to people's lives, you know what? Everything kind of it self-aligns itself and it kind of works out. And I think that's, for me, take your own version of optimizing potential, apply it to all those people around you, your work situation, your personal life. We know what good looks like. We know which way is up, and just keep doing that.
Love it. And I think it demonstrates, growth mindset is part of our DNA. And it kind of, with that in mind, I'm really, I'll be very interested to kind of hear the feedback as this inaugural podcast hits the social channels, as to the feedback loop. What can we learn from this channel? What do people want to hear more of? What do people want to hear less of?
So I will just go on to optimizing potential. There was one point in our history where we set up a CrossFit gym at the office, and I was taking people out doing CrossFit training at lunchtime, and I don't think they felt like optimizing potential was a particularly great idea at that point in time. I think after just doing the warm-up, half of them were being ill. So I think it's I don't know, optimizing potential could be a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I didn't feel particularly like I was optimizing my potential halfway up Mont Bouet, following you up.
Well, you did it. You got there, and that's the thing. You literally climbed the mountain. So and there's a metaphor for life.
There you go, grit and determination.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time, Marcus, Neil. I sincerely hope this is the beginning of a series where we can share our insights, because I think we've got a lot of value, stories I'd never heard before out of today. And I'm looking forward to launching the rest of this series. So
yes, brilliant. Thank you very much.
Technology projects can be complicated. Risk and external regulations, tight deadlines, budgets to manage. And what happens when the skills you need aren't available in-house? At Caspian One, we help you to overcome these headaches. Whether you're looking to modernize to gain a competitive advantage or dealing with stubborn legacy systems, we take responsibility for all project deliverables and governance, including both legislative and commercial risks. You can count on us to see that your milestones are delivered on time and on budget. That's because we partner with a hand-picked network of tech and industry experts and use well-defined statements of work, all under the management of our central project hub. We're specialists, not mass resource providers or system integrators. That's got to be worth a chat with our friendly team, right? Caspian One, a smarter way to deliver projects.